So I have been using TastyTrade as my broker and my trading platform for a number of years, and TastyTrade is fantastic. They keep improving it. They keep both improving the desktop client, which you're looking at here, as well as the web client. You can actually trade from your browser if you don't have the desktop client installed, or maybe you're trading from somebody else's computer, so you can't just download the desktop client and install it on somebody else's computer, but you can just log in through the web browser and trade through the TastyTrade web client, and it actually looks and functions very similar to the desktop client. They're actually pretty seamless. Now, still, there's a few things in the web client that aren't in the desktop client. There's still a few things in the desktop client that aren't in the web client, so they're a little different, but they're both getting very good. They're both exceptional pieces of software, and of course, TastyTrade also has mobile clients as well. They have iOS and Android clients. And one of the things I wanted to highlight today is just some of the changes in recent months with TastyTrade, both the desktop and the web client. Because if you're somebody that tried out TastyTrade as a trading platform, say 4 or 5 years ago, it was a very different platform. They didn't have nearly as much functionality built into it back then because it was a new product, right? But they kept adding things, they kept improving things, and now I think this is the best trading platform out there, bar none. Especially as an options trader, I primarily trade options. I can't imagine using anything other than TastyTrade for trading options. One of the things I love about TastyTrade is that it has watch lists built in everywhere, because watch lists are important. You should be monitoring the market. That's one of the most important activities you should be doing. So you have this watch list over here on the side that is expandable. It's customizable. We can change the columns of information. I often just use this watch list with what you're seeing here. I've got the last price change percentage, the bid-ask spread, as well as IVR and the IVX 5-day change, so I can see if volatility has been expanding or contracting in the last 5 days, because primarily I'm an option seller, so often I want to see volatility expanding in a product before I, for example, sell a put or sell a strangle on it. Now, some people will have more needs for their watch list. They'll want to have, 15, 20 different columns of information. And of course, you can do that. But what you probably need to do is use the watch list over here in the center column, the kind of the main pane. And of course, if we expand this as big as it can get, you can fit a ton of information in this center watch list. And of course, if you want, you can also have a watch list over here in the right hand sidebar as well, this little pop out gutter sidebar. Just go ahead and use that as a watch list as well. Right now, this is a little pop out sidebar, but if you want to make it a fixed column, you can actually do that. You can actually hit this button here and it becomes a fixed column that you can adjust the width. For me, I like having that being able to just pop out of the way. I think it makes the most sense, so I typically keep that as the little pop out. And for me, again, I typically have my layout just like this. And of course, in the center of the screen, the most important thing as an options trader, of course, is my options positions. What are my current options positions doing? And it's very easy for me to see, am I up as far as P&L on the day? Am I up P&L since I opened the position? What is my P&L open as far as a percentage? Have I made 25% of max profit on the trade or 50% of max profit? I can quickly tell. I can quickly tell how many days I've been in the trade. For example, this trade here, I've been in 65 days and I've got 23 days left till expiration. I can look at the trade price, which is the price that I either bought or sold the option position at. I can look at the mark, which is its current price, and the difference between the two tells me how much money I'm up or down on the trade. For example, this strangle in ARKK, I sold for $158. Right now, it's being priced at $102. That means I'm up on this position about $56. And you can see the P&L since open is $56. It's just very easy to tell what's going on with your options. As a matter of fact, if I click that back on so I can see this strangle in ARKK, how many total deltas do I have on this strangle right now? Well, right now I have one short delta. So it's essentially still a delta neutral strangle. It hasn't really moved one way or the other. I can also see that it's got a little bit of positive theta. It's also got a little bit of negative vega. Positive theta means I benefit on this from passage of time, right? So every day that passes, I make a little money on a short strangle. The negative vega means as long as volatility decreases, I make money. If volatility increases, I actually lose money on a short strangle. Now, I've done videos about all three of these primary Greeks, delta, theta, and vega, in the past. Go check out those videos if you don't know what those Greeks are, because they do require some explanation. And again, I've done detailed videos on the primary option Greeks. Now, I primarily use the desktop client, but the web client, every time I check it out, it does keep getting better and better. Matter of fact, this thing, I'll be honest, it looks sexy. What they've done with the web client here looks really good, and it's not that different as far as the way it is structured with the columns of information. For example, you've got a watch list over here in this left-hand sidebar. This thing is collapsible, by the way. It is also adjustable. Now, this was very recently added, the ability to actually adjust the size. Also, you can adjust the columns of information. They just recently made it to where you could really customize this. They've also recently added this little pop-out where you can make that window a floating window inside the window, which I don't know if I would find that necessarily all that useful, but that is interesting that it has it there. For me, I probably would just pop it out when I need it. I think that makes sense. You also have the same kind of sidebar over here on the right. Over here, you've got this column of information with the same kind of information you have in the desktop client. For example, if I hit the overview button, it pops out the sidebar on the overview, but you also have positions, you have your activity, you have your watch list, you have an alarm where you can create an alert, and then you can watch Tasty Live right here from the trading platform. I actually never used that. And then you have your order chains and the news for that ticker. There's no news for the NASDAQ ticker for futures products. But if this was a individual stock, an individual company, you would get like some news information, news stories. And if I click on the overview button again, that column goes away. Right now we're looking at the positions tab. Again, it's a very similar kind of layout to the positions tab here in the desktop client. You can set it up to where everything kind of looks the same on both. So I can switch between both if I want to and feel right at home. If I want to go to the options chain, I click trade here. By the way, this is a pop out as well. You can actually expand that, or you can just use the icons. If you know what the icons are, you can collapse that so you have a little bit more room on the screen. And of course, you've got your options chain here. For example, if I want to go sell a put in NQ, go find the put that I want to sell based on its delta. Scrolled way too far down here. Let's find a 16 delta put, and I can click on it. I can click on the bid price. That's a sell. If I click on the ask price, that's a buy. So it's very easy to buy and sell options right from the options chain, and that's the same for the desktop client as well. If I go into the options chain here in ARKK, let me go to the 37-day cycle. Anytime you want to sell an option, click on the bid price. Anytime you want to buy an option, click on the ask price. And it's the same way with stocks and futures. For example, in the header here, right now we're looking at ARKK, which is a stock, but if I had a futures ticker here, such as /ES or /NQ, if you want to buy or sell that stock or that futures, you can actually click on the ask to buy. In this case, a one lot, 100 shares of ARKK. If this had been a futures ticker, clicking on the ask would actually buy one contract of the future. And that same functionality actually works on any bid-ask price in a watch list. For example, if I go to the watch list over here and I click on the ask price on MES, right now I'm buying one contract of MES. I'll go ahead and clear that out because I don't actually need that contract. Now, one of the cool things that have been recently added to the web platform, and it's coming soon to the desktop client, if I go back and let's expand this. In this column here, we have fixed income. Let me click on fixed income. And right now we get this window here, this pane in the center, and this is a list of US Treasury bills. So you can buy T-bills now inside the TastyTrade platform, at least the web client. This will eventually come to the desktop client as well. And if I go to positions, right now when you're sorting your positions by stocks, options, futures, crypto, you now have fixed income here as well. So if I bought a T-bill, I would see the T-bill here in the positions. And on the desktop client, they have already added the fixed income tab to where if I bought a treasury bill either from the web client, or maybe I phoned TastyTrade and over the phone bought a treasury bill, I would see that position listed here. We will eventually get to the point where we have the same functionality on the desktop client to also purchase those T-bills. And that's kind of a brand new feature they've been working on. Another really recent feature they've been working on. They just added the new backtesting tool here in TastyTrade. They've added it both to the desktop client as well as the web client. Let's click on backtesting in both, and it looks and functions exactly the same in both. It's essentially, a matter of fact, it looks like the desktop client really is just a web page. It is just pulling the same thing from the web client. And you'll see this on a few different things. It looks like the desktop client really is kind of the web client, and maybe at some point it would not shock me if they just abandoned the desktop client altogether and made the web client the client, right? Or just make the desktop client like an Electron app, a web app, because I think that kind of is the future of software anyway. These old school Java applications, which is what the desktop client currently is, it's kind of a older technology that not a lot of people, if you were starting a software project now, you probably wouldn't, build it with Java. You probably would have went with a web application anyway. But this new backtesting software is fantastic. So the way this works, let me move my head. You pick a ticker and then you pick a time frame. So we're on TLT for the past 5 years. Of course, I can sort that. I pick different time frames and pick a strategy. Right now, I'm doing a strangle, 16 delta strangle, 45 days, and I'm going to sell this strangle every Friday. I'm going to limit the number of active trades to 5. That way I don't have a million of these strangles on at one time. I'm going to exit at 21 DTE. I'm going to take profit at 50%. Some other things, I could add a stop loss if I wanted. I could exit after a certain number of days if I wanted. I could also, this is brand new to the backtest, they just added this, I could use VIX. So I could exit the trade when VIX is above a certain value. And I think that is really fantastic. Again, this backtesting software is rather new. They've only just recently added this. It's a few weeks old at most as far as being live on the desktop client and the web client. So they keep improving it. They keep adding functionality. Let's run this back test. This back test hopefully won't take very long. It is a 5-year back test. There may be a lot of data. And the back test completed, and you get a chart here. Now the gray line is TLT's closing price each day. So basically it's stock chart. Now the orange line is how our option strategy, selling strangles, did. And you can kind of compare the two, right? TLT, you can see its stock price has actually gone down over the last 5 years, but you can see my short strangle strategy would have worked rather nicely actually over that same time period. And this was just a random ticker and a random strategy I picked. But now that I've actually run the back test, maybe I should explore trading more strangles on TLT. And again, I could have run that exact same back test. It would have functioned and looked exactly the same. Some other things they've worked on with the web client, they've also really been focusing on, adding some of like the basic settings that you have in the desktop client into the web client. For example, I know it hasn't been too long that you've been able to like beta weight things to tickers other than SPY. Now, I would never beta weight to anything other than SPY. You don't want to play with it. You want to keep your beta weighted deltas the same for the most part. But if you have some weird need why you need to change beta weighting to something other than SPY, you now can do that in the web platform. You also can do that in the desktop client. You've been able to do that in the desktop client. You also have all the customization options you would expect for your watch list, where you can add or remove certain columns in your watch list from the 3 main watch lists, which are the center main, your left sidebar watch list, and your right sidebar watch list. You can also customize your positions report, yada, yada, yada. Now, some of the stuff that isn't quite here yet in the web client that is in the desktop client, some of the things I really love, and these are kind of recent additions to the desktop client. I really love, the P&L button. This hasn't been around too long here, but I get this P&L graph of my overall portfolio. I can tick all of this off, and I can just see how, certain groups of my positions look as far as their risk profile, their risk graph here. And I can see, hey, I'm too long the market, I'm too short the market, maybe there's some holes in the risk profile that I want to fill by going and putting on some trades. I know that's something I look at on a pretty regular basis. Almost every day I take a look at that overall P&L graph, so I see if there's anything that needs to be addressed in my overall options portfolio. Another really cool piece of technology built into here. If I click on this cap requirement button, we can actually go in here. For one thing, I like looking at the allocation. This is an allocation chart of all my positions. It tells me all the positions I currently have, various stock positions, index positions, as well as futures positions. It tells me the size as far as dollar amount, as well as the percentage of my buying power that's in use right now, how much is being taken up by each position. You also have this risk analysis tool, and if I go to cap requirement, I can actually turn on, certain positions and then run a risk analysis. Basically, this is what happens if SPY makes a 20% move up and down. And you can also see what happens if IV shifts 10% increments. And those random positions I just ticked on, you can see how would they do? They wouldn't do very well. The IV shift especially kind of hurts them across the board. But then as far as delta wise, going down 20%, if the overall market went down 20%, I'd be hurting on those particular positions. So that is kind of a cool piece of technology. Again, for those that want to spend time actually analyzing their risk. And I do think risk analysis and risk management, I think, are the most important things when it comes to trading. One last little feature I want to talk about. Let's go back to the web client, because I don't know if they'll eventually add this to the desktop client or not, but I do like that we have this journal option in the web client. You click on this and you can add a new journal entry, so you can jot down things, notes about whatever's going on in your trading this day, or what's going on in the market, or a particular ticker. And that's kind of a neat option. Again, really neat option in the web platform. Maybe they'll eventually add that to the desktop client. I don't know if that's something that's on their horizon, but I certainly wouldn't mind them adding that feature. So there you have it, a little bit of what you can do inside TastyTrade, both the desktop client and the web client. Again, in my opinion, and a lot of other traders' opinion, the best options trading platform, bar none. There's not a better broker to trade options on than TastyTrade. Also, their fee structure is very reasonable. You pay $1 to open a position. You pay nothing to close a position. Those are option positions. You pay nothing for stock positions. So obviously that's very nice. Also, if you're going to open up an account at TastyTrade, if you're thinking about, moving an account over to TastyTrade, please use my affiliate link. If you use my affiliate link, I think they give me a few bucks. So that would actually help. If you want to help support my work here, help support the YouTube channel, I appreciate that. All right, guys. Peace.